Hi guys, Jared here with Day Traders FX. Hopefully you're having a good day. We saw some good movement and let's get right to it. First of all, Dow is up, S&P is up, everything's up, everything's had a pretty bullish day and we've seen that those movements definitely reflected in the currency markets. We'll have a look at those in just a moment. Coming up today, we have some pretty important announcements news-wise. Anybody that's trading the New Zealand dollar, keep an eye out for employment numbers. Um, so that's coming up in a few minutes, and then we have employment numbers for Australia that will be a couple hours later. We'll talk about the Australian numbers a little bit more as we get to the wrap-up session this afternoon. And then coming up, we have some bank holidays in Europe, so things might be a little bit slow on some of the European fronts there. But so far, I think we should see some good activity. Coming into tomorrow, we've got a lot of stuff that's going to get this pound dollar hopefully deciding what direction it's going to finally go, and that is the interest rate announcement out of the UK and the rate statement and so on. That's going to be a big deal. So that's going to happen tomorrow morning, bright and early. We'll be on for that. We'll be watching that. We'll see where things go. Should be an exciting, active time in the market. So lots of good stuff happening there. And then, of course, we have the Australian monetary policy statement tomorrow night as well. So tons of stuff in the works, tons of stuff. Okay, so let's have a look at this euro dollar. Yesterday we talked about if the euro dollar dipped down to 130.30, buying on that dip against these big lows, or looking for a break, which it didn't do either of, or if we got up here not considering a reversal off of 130.130, but just trading the break of 130.130. And you can see that we got up here to 130.130 and broke, and it ran up over 60 pips and just came shy of 13200 and has turned around and is starting to pull back just a little bit. So far the euro dollar is kind of playing out pretty well. Still retail traders remain pretty long, pretty short euro dollar. They're pretty short euro dollar, pretty short pound dollar, and so those are two factors. You know, this cleared out some of those stops for sure, and we'll see how that kind of continues to go. But so far, I think that we might see a little bit of a push higher into the highs on this euro dollar, which would take us into about 132.45, give or take. And so what I would like to do, we're sitting here at about 131.50, that common area that the euro loves to get back to over and over and over again. We're sitting right there. I'd like to get long somewhere around 130, 130, just against these levels. There's been a ton of resistance, tons of support, and tons of resistance, and now there should be tons of support here around this 130, 130. So I think getting long in this general area with stops, we really need to have some larger stops, kind of in the 130, 60, 70 area, but for the most part, we just want to see and make sure that this can stay above the weekly pivot. So I don't honestly think we need that large of stops. Somewhere maybe 130, 100 with an entry of 131, 30, 35 right in that general area, and targeting 130, 200 once again. Things are pretty range bound, pretty choppy, and we're probably going to see that continue on for the rest of the week, but we'll see how it goes. But so far, that's kind of what I'm looking for on the euro dollar. It's holding into the channel pretty well, and it's kind of hanging on there so far. Pound dollar has done some interesting stuff. It actually made a big rally up. I didn't think that it would run quite up to those highs, and it did. It came all the way up here, and the high of today was about 155.90, and you can see that it's off that by almost 60 pips now. But it keeps testing this just almost 15600 area. Just test, and it's finally dropping off and coming back down again. This pound dollar is getting tricky. It looks like it wants to break. Retail traders are still mostly long. Good grief, mostly short pound dollar, and definitely the minority is long pound dollar and long euro dollar, and so we're kind of one thing that I'm kind of noticing here is we're kind of consolidating into the middle of the channel just by default. We're not really moving down to it. We're just kind of consolidating into the middle of that channel, which would give us, this could be giving this pound dollar enough kind of support and kind of consolidation to power through this 50% fib and up into that 61.8. Remember that we have a big missed target at about 159.00 on the pound dollar, so we could be running back up into that again. But remember, we have UK stuff coming out, so I'm not going to do too much on the pound dollar for now. We're going to wait until after the meeting minutes come and the interest rate announcement, and then we'll be looking to take some trades on the pound dollar tomorrow. So we'll see how that goes. But for the meantime, we're just going to kind of wait. It's still totally range bound and has been for like 2 or 3 weeks now, and so we're just going to sit that out. Remember, we have Australian employment numbers out today, and that's always a big mover. The Australian dollar has a lot of support down here at 101.15, but it also happens to have a pretty good amount here at 101.50, and you can see that we keep testing that 101.50. We plowed right down to it, and then bounced and then created a nice little bullish candle here and bounced up again, and here we are back at it again. And so the Aussie dollar looks like there might be a good amount of support. Now remember, a couple of things that we have on this pair here is we have a potential little trend line that's coming into the works, and likewise we have a missed daily pivot that's all the way back here. That's 85 pips away now, and so the Aussie could finally be making that run to get to that missed daily pivot. And and getting to that move, and so that could very likely be the case. We're just gonna have to wait and watch and see, and really see how this thing goes. But those employment numbers, are either gonna spike this thing down into that 101.15 support or back up into this missed pivot. We're just gonna have to kind of watch and wait and see how this one goes. It's gonna be a little bit tricky, but I think overall we should get some very nice movement out of that. So watch this 102.20 area. Above this, definitely we should have a nice run into that missed pivot, and below 101.50 we should have a very nice run into 101.15. But likewise, I almost think if we didn't have Australian employment numbers coming up, I would buy this against this short-term support. We're only 15 pips off it. I'd risk 20 pips and put in a buy with a 20 pip stop and let this thing play out. But again, with the big news and employment coming, it'll be best to just kind of wait that one out. So things have been really much more difficult in trading than they normally are. We've had a lot of range-bound stuff, and it's just been tough to trade, really tough to trade. And so hopefully we're going to get out of that and get into some nice trend, and I think we will eventually. You can see that so many pairs are just choppy. Euro yen choppy, Aussie yen is slowly making its way down, but we'll have some better setups as things start to break and do a little bit more. But for the meantime, we're just kind of holding on to the chop. We're trying to be very careful and very cautious with our trades and our entries. So I will keep you guys posted on Twitter and in the chat. Thanks a bunch, everyone, and we will see you in the chat.